We are Fandom Roulette.
Two nerds with a passion for
History,
video games,
tabletop games,
and, well, really any nerdy stuff that comes into our lives.
While we might not be able to name every ship classification in Star Wars,
Or every Pokemon.
or every spell in the player's handbook,
Well, one of us can.
we're still here to have a good time.
Live from, it's not actually live, pre-recorded from the Fandom Roulette Studios. It's the annual year-end award show. This is Joe.
And I'm Jeremiah Jackflap, here at the heart of PancakeCon 2020.
Oh, it's an award show and a con?
Yeah, Fandom Roulette and PancakeCon have joined together in a beautiful harmony.
That's pretty cool.
Fandom, pancakes, it's delicious. I love it. This is actually just a fever dream that I had mere moments before recording.
I'm down for a PancakeCon. Like, what would those panels be like? Like griddle versus griddle versus
I think
pan?
it would be a huge mix.
Think so?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Are waffles allowed in?
Ooh, you know what? I think Fandom Roulette would allow it.
Okay.
Because we are a positive, friendly podcast, and we like to, all inclusive and stuff like that.
Yes.
But I bet you those pancakes might be like, I don't know about those guys.
Yeah. This is, wow. I'm seeing such a narrative forming in front of my eyes. I didn't realize this was sentient pancakes.
Yes. Well, oops. Cat's out of the bag now. Sentient pancakes have taken over 2020 in a very delicious way.
That'd be a lot more fun than certain things. Hey everyone.
Ooh, snap.
It's 2020.
Yeah, welcome.
We made it.
Yeah, sort of.
We sure. We hope you had a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah.
Hey Cody, it's been a minute since we recorded. Do you do anything nerdy, or do you want to save that for the main crux of the content of this here episode? Because it's going to be a little bit more freewheeling than we usually do.
Yeah, I can get into it a little bit.
Okay.
Watched a lot of TV.
Good.
I watched Mandalorian and The Witcher.
Ooh, hey, that might come up later.
It might, yeah. I won't get into too much, but I liked them.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I played a lot of video game.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later too.
A video game singular or multiple of them?
Multiple, lots of video games.
Oh wow. That's cool.
With those Steam sales, I always get new games. It's a curse of mine, really, but here we are.
Hey, it's write it off on your taxes for podcast content.
Oh my god, that's what I'm gonna do. New future me.
Hear that, Johnny Claus? It's for the podcast.
Ain't no laws when you're drinking claws.
I learned that actually over the break.
Yeah, there are no laws when you drink White Claws.
I drank a claw, and then the law went away. I was like, whoa! I lived in a state of anarchy for like a glorious 10 minutes.
Yeah. And a lot of holiday stuff, going to see friends, family, the whole shebang. I got to play in a one shot and got to use a character that I like to throw in every now and then.
Ooh.
He's a cleric. I got to play a cleric for the first time, like a legit cleric.
Yeah.
Not like, because the last time I played a cleric, it was a grave cleric, and that's kind of like a hokey, like, it's a very different kind of cleric. I played a knowledge cleric, and boy howdy are spirit guardians and spiritual weapon the most bullshit broken things I've ever experienced in my life.
I know, aren't they great?
And then I circumvented half the encounter because I was level 5 and there was zombies everywhere, and I just destroyed half of them. It was great. I loved it.
Did you turn undead or whatever?
I did turn undead.
Oh wait, no. At what level were you? Because it could have been destroy undead.
It was Destroy Undead.
Hey, I
but
nerfed
yeah.
an encounter with Destroy Undead one time.
You did. Well, you didn't really nerf it. I intended you to do that, but
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. Okay,
but
Cody.
well, see, the difference between that is the DM that I was playing with didn't know who I was playing until like right as we started.
Okay.
So he'd already developed the combat, and it was pretty rough
Sure.
for that group. Like, had I not been there, it probably would have spelled disaster, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it was super fun. I get why people like playing clerics, because they're like super great and like really good at like everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of my I mean, it's hard to take a, an abstract concept of what did you do in the past month of like nerdy content, but
Sure. Yeah.
but that's about like
I
the
feel that.
highlights.
Yeah.
That fight was won by a man named Assless Dave or something like that. Yeah.
Intriguing.
He was an NPC who I gave up my crossbow to, because I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking use this. So I like used it as a kind gesture to the man, and he nat 20'd on the final hit and was able to kill the creature that we were fighting. It was so good. It was a good
job,
time.
Assless Dave.
Yeah. So what about you? What was your holiday like?
Oh yeah. So there was some work in there. But then when the work was done,
yeah,
I saw some films.
Nice.
Yeah. That will be coming up later as well. Not to get into spoilers or anything. And then let's see. This is kind of exciting for Christmas. I'm gonna do a full report when I'm done with this. But I got a blacksmithing class.
Fucking what? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, there's a place by us that offers blacksmithing classes.
Yeah, well, I hope in your blacksmithing classes they teach you how to just continually make like silver daggers, and that will eventually give you the expertise needed to build advanced things like helmets and full on chest pieces and Skyrim rules.
After I'm done with this class, then I'm going to be eligible to take the knife making class. So that's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Nice. Yeah, and if you just make like thousands of those and enchant them, like you can basically just print infinite money.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I also played in a one-shot, actually.
Nice.
We were playing a system called Lancer. Have you ever heard of this system?
No, it sounds cool though. Tell me more.
It is... Are you ready for this? Just get ready for this.
Yeah. I'm in my seat.
It is a mech tabletop role playing game.
Oh my god, this is everything I've wanted and more.
Yeah, right. It was really cool.
Oh my gosh.
So you build your pilot, and then you build your mech, and then they both have different stats. So you can do like out of robot stuff, and then you have in robot like bat encounters and stuff. And so the thing that I thought was really cool about it, there were a couple of aspects. So we were playing at like level license level 2 is what it's called, and you have like an HP bar like in a normal RPG. So if I noticed it was kind of low, right? And so what happens is, when you run out of HP, you lose a systems, and then it's on like a random roll table, and then you could potentially lose like a weapon or like an equipment piece of equipment or something like that. Then there's a secondary thing, which is your heat, which is your core thing, and once again, it's like its own separate HP bar. And then when that fills up, you lose core stability, and then if you lose core stability, you can blow it up.
Oh damn.
It was a lot of fun though. It was I played a kind of tanky frontline who had a shotgun and a big like a big robot hammer that I had to reload between rounds.
Wait, you had to reload the hammer?
Yeah, it was one of those deals where it was like a piston gun basically, or it was like a piston hammer. Oh
hell yeah.
So you had to cock it basically to blast it. Oh boy. But it was fun. And then the other cool thing was that I think it's either in the book or it was on a forum that one of the people was using. They had pre-made like soundtrack playlists that included like anime beats and like techno beats and like hip hop and dad rock, and it was a lot of fun. So
hell yeah, that sounds mech shit is like is one of those like concepts that I really liked, but
yeah.
No matter what happened in my life, I always just could not find like something that was like good or, you know, worked with like whatever current situation I was in.
Sure.
So like,
yeah,
I was like, oh, I want something super cool and mech warrior-esque, and shit, I'm gonna have to check this out. You said it was Lancer?
it's called Lancer. And well, the one thing I think is really cool about it too, is that like you could build a mech and a pilot with two completely different personalities or playstyles, basically.
Right.
So like
right.
my pilot was like a nerdy little hacker mechanic kid, and my mech was like this big beefy tanky thing, right? So you
had like almost two roles depending on like whether you were the pilot or you were the mech with the pilot inside.
Yeah, and it was neat. And I've heard that there are some mech games out there that are like really really crunchy. This one had like the right level of crunch for me, I think. So
yeah, so like if in terms of crunch from like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, which I don't really consider that crunchy, to like Pathfinder, where it's like, holy shit, there's a lot of crunch here. Where are we? Where does it lean towards? Is it dipping towards 5e?
It felt pretty. Felt pretty like firmly 5e to me.
Got it. Okay.
One of the things I kind of liked about it too, there were a lot of balances of there were a lot of weird little things that I quite enjoyed. So like this is like one of the main mechanics is like, so I had a shotgun that was I can't remember the term for it. It was an inaccurate shotgun. And so basically if I were to fire with that shotgun, I would have to roll a d20, I would add my modifier, and then I would have to roll a d6 and subtract that from my roll, right? So let's say I rolled like a 7, let's say I rolled like a 15 and it hit, but then I rolled like a 3, so it's 12, and then suddenly it doesn't hit anymore. That was like a
weird.
That was like a fun little mechanic thing, because it was almost like anti-bard, but like it could work the other way as well, right? So you could get like advantage dices basically, but it was just a d6 to add to your dice roll. And it was only d20s and d6s, which was nice, because I got the fun of playing with my polyhedral dice, but I also had the thing where it's like if you have a couple of like monopolies laying around, it's not too hard to throw a game together. If at least one person has a d20 and you have a couple of like a couple of standard board games, like you two could play Lancer pretty quick. You don't have to like run out and grab your huge fancy dice set. So, but anyway,
that sounds
Cody,
rad as fuck. Yeah,
it's a new year.
It is a new year. You know what?
Yeah.
Should we do our nerdy New Year's resolutions first?
Ooh, our nerdy New Year's resolution.
Because I got one. I'm already starting to work on it.
I have 2. Go ahead. What's yours?
So my first, the second one I'll talk about in the middle section.
Okay.
But the first one, it is the year 2020.
Yes.
It is the 1 year in which there are 2 crits on the year.
Oh, hell yeah.
So what I'm going to do for the entirety of 2020 is I'm going to record every natural 20 that I see in person or on on the internet, whatever. Wherever I'm playing, I'm going to record every nat 20 that I experience.
Oh man, I thought okay. That's awesome. Can I tell you how I interpreted that? And then you'll understand why I was laughing. When you said, I'm going to record every nat 20 I see, I thought like you meant like I'm walking down the street and I see like a dude like bust a sick dance move. That's a nat 20. Like, record that, baby. Like, you're just walking around the world and you're just deeming things nat 20s. Like, a barista makes a really cool, like, flower on the top of my coffee. That's a nat 20, baby.
Oh, my God. No. That would... Amazing. But no. I'm going to record every natural 20 that is rolled at a tabletop session. And I'm going to compile all that data and see how many 20s I see in the year of 2020. Our
That's
Lord
lovely.
and Savior.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So far, it's 5.
So far, it's 5. Dang. It's off to a good start.
It is off to a good start. Although, I have been in 2 sessions, and session 2 had 0 nat 20s, so...
Well, I mean, that kind of comes with the territory, right?
Right. It was also a very, like, die light evening, too, so...
and then, of course, like, you know, in our group's case, we burn all of our 20s on dumb bullshit. So
it's very true. You guys do burn your 20s on, like, do I persuade the bard at the store to give me a discount of 10% on the thing that I wanted? And it's like, yes, they gave you the discount with that net 20.
It's really a thing of beauty if you think about it.
Yeah. Or I give you a very big clue with the nat 20 that you roll, and then instead of picking up on the clue, you're upset that I told you that there were like 15 candles in a room. So, you know, here we are.
Oh, did we miss a big clue that time?
Yeah, no. So like, okay, boy. Story of 2019. This isn't my best moment, but one of the party members was looking for something in a room and rolled a nat 20, and I began to describe to them in great detail the kind of the intricacies of how the room was laid out. It's kind of like one of those creepy cultist rooms with all these candles and things.
Oh, yeah.
And
I picked up on that.
Right. And like, there was like this whole thing that like fire is bad against the thing that they were trying to attack. And like, I was trying to like lay that on pretty thick because, you know, hey, you rolled a nat 20. You deserve to know that information. And so that party member got upset because they didn't catch on to that clue. So anytime someone rolls a nat 20, she always asks how many candles are in the room. So here we are. Wow, what a long intro this has been.
Oh, it's not even close to our longest. I think that was the last episode. But anyway, hey, so my segment is going to be called The Joeys, because that was a joke that I thought was funny from last year.
Like the Oscars?
Yeah, or like more like the Tonys or the
Emmys.
Yeah.
Why did I go in anyway?
But also like Joey is a shortening of my name, which is Joseph. But anyway,
no, I totally got the naming thing. Yeah.
So some just some really quick things, some blanket disclaimers.
Blanket those disclaimers. Tell the people not to at you on Twitter.
So don't at me on Twitter. My media consumption this year was a little sloppy. So my winners are from my personal like media consumption. So if you're like, what, you didn't even say this, it's a chance I didn't watch it or like read it or whatever.
So sloppy.
It was kind of a bad, I don't know, man. I finished like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and then like I couldn't watch anything for a really long time.
Dude, that's such an undertaking. Like, I totally get that you were like, maybe I'm not gonna watch TV right now.
Yeah, for a little bit. And then so the other thing, and I think like everyone kind of agrees with this, but like most of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about some stuff that's episodic. So that like it's possible that aspects of it were also in 2018. But for me, my personal rule of thumb is that if it's ended in 2019 or if it was like done in 2018 but I really engaged with it in 2019, then I'm going to count it towards 2019. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it is the year of doing nerdy stuff.
Sure.
In
So, like,
ye old 2019.
I'm not gonna I didn't do this last year, but like if I had read like Walt Simonson's run of Thor from the 80s, I'm not going to say that was the best comic of 2019, but
no,
like if
I
it was
almost
a comic,
would rather you say it that way.
But if it was like something where it was like, it started in like late 2018 and I didn't like really learn about it, or like I didn't pick up the trade paperback because trade paperbacks don't usually get published until 6 issues are published or things like that, and I found it in 2019, I'm going to count it towards 2019. So anyways, well, can I do my first category?
Yeah, hit us off with the Joeys.
All right. So favorite animated series. So here's my quick honorable mentions. So I'm gonna start off with Carmen Sandiego. Carmen Sandiego has 2 seasons now on Netflix. This is a modern day telling of Carmen Sandiego, with the big twist being that Carmen is still a thief, but she is a thief stealing from a more evil organization in order to protect the history that she is stealing. So it's very bright and it's very colorful. They have some fun lamp shading and things like that. And it's educational without being, like beating you over the head with education. It's just some really good voice actors. It's a couple of people from Critical Role. Gina Rodriguez is the main character. Overall, it's a fun little series. Marvel's Spider-Man Season 2. This was a show that, I'm not going to lie to you, had something of a rough start when I started watching it. But over time, I really grew to care for the characters and things like that. They did the Superior Spider-Man saga, which is a fun comic where Doc Ock became Spider-Man. And they were able to make it work really well. I was kind of curious how they were going to tone it down for the PG audience, because Superior Spider-Man never got like dark. It never got like adult dark, but it certainly got darker than a lot of Spider-Man fare. And the animation's a little rough, but the voice acting and the characters are fun. Another impressive thing last year was BoJack Horseman Season 8, which is one of the best animated adult shows out there, which is funny, but also like really powerful and often really sad. It's not one to watch if you're in like not a great mood, but it's consistently been one of the best shows out there. And then my winner is She-Ra Seasons 2 to 4, because Netflix's animation schedule is wild. There were 3 seasons of She-Ra this year. They were all, I believe, like 6 season episodes apiece. So it's clear that Netflix is kind of taking the sort of anime style of producing television shows. But just the fact that 3 seasons came out in 1 year is kind of nuts to me. But the animation's really bright and cheerful, but at the same time it's presenting some, cool, complex ideas about like what it means to be a friend, and like how to deal with grief, and being there for someone, and like recognizing when a person's unhappy even if they're not acting happy, and things like that. It's consistently one of the most entertaining shows that I have watched this season in terms of animation. So that is Joe's favorite animated show of 2019. It's She-Ra's Seasons 2 through 4, which is a wild thing to say out loud.
Especially because it all came out in 2019. Like, what a year
crazy
for Netflix.
I double checked. I did. I was like, no way that 3 seasons came out this past year. But yeah, so there you go.
Hell yeah.
All right. Do you have something to bring to the table, Cody?
Sure. Well, I was thinking about it, and I don't have a Joey's for my personal animated series, because I think I only really watched... I think I only watched 2 animated shows, period, which is wild. I know. I really dropped the ball on that one. But that said, My Hero Academia this season has been fucking wild, and it is seeping into 2020, and some of the craziest shit just happened in like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and
oh boy, it's on the level of last season's big drop.
Okay.
Which I'm trying to avoid spoilers for people who want to watch it, but for those of you who watch the show and are like still catching up, like, you got to watch this season because they do some wild shit that is as wild as the season before, if not wilder. That being said, I don't really have like an entire list. There are 4 video games that were my personal favorite for the year.
Okay.
There were a lot of video games. And if you are a video gamer like myself, 2019 was a real fucking weird year. I get it. So I'll probably say my 4, and I think Joe and I are gonna talk a little bit about some of that weirdness that happened this year.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of stuff. There was some political nonsense. There were 2 incredibly divisive games that came out. All sorts of shit. But I'll say my first favorite of the year, and then I'll go back to you.
Okay.
And I guess if I had to give this a category, this is a game that almost didn't make the list. But after going back to it, I fell in love with it, and it went back on my list. For those of you who are familiar with the podcast, this game is Control, which is a Metroidvania style game where you play, and now, of course, the one time I need to, Jesse Faden, a person with unique abilities, gets caught up in this huge thing with a secret government organization called the Bureau of Control or something to that extent. And it's kind of like X-Files and like an action game, but there's like various things that you have to go around and do, and it's such a weird game. And it's from the guys who did Alan Wake, and there's another game, but like, it's super weird, it's super fun. My only thing is, the reason it almost didn't hit my list is because I think the console versions of this game are crap. They don't run well, and the loading times are shit. But then I got it on sale over Christmas for the computer, and oh boy, runs like a dream. So it almost didn't make my list because I almost didn't give it another shot because I didn't play it on the PC when it came out when I should have. So yeah.
Excellent.
So back to you for another Joey.
All right. All right. So yeah. This next category is going to be favorite comics. All right. So for my honorable mentions, we have House of X and Powers of X, which are 2 miniseries that sort of were written to be read in tandem with one another. So the comic creator Jonathan Hickman has recently returned to Marvel and took over the X books. Now, he has said that he intended this to be a clean entry point into the X-Men. So I kind of experimented with this because I had read sporadic X-Men. And it's not the cleanest entry point I've ever seen. But it is taking the X-Men in kind of like a bold new direction. So the very, very basic premise of this is that Professor X has created a mutant nation on the island of Krakoa. And he has a few rules. One of them is that, like, if you've ever been if you're a mutant, like, you have clemency and you can come. So, like, any villain you can think of, even that villain is allowed on Krakoa. And he's basically like, all the mutants are going to live here. You're going to leave us alone. We are going to give you these very nice life-saving drugs, and you are going to leave us alone. It's also spawned some pretty fun spin-offs, one of which is my next entry, which is The Marauders, which is X-Men Pirates. The writer of this has been literally pitching X-Men Pirates for years, and they were like, oh, okay, why don't you ask Jonathan if you're allowed to do that? And Jonathan was like, yeah, that sounds great. Do that thing. And then it's one of the protagonists of the series is Kitty Pryde, but she's going by Kate now, which is kind of like an interesting examination of how she has risen up through the ranks and how she has grown and changed over the years. The next one is Jughead's Time Police, which is from Archie Comics, which I discovered this past year are like really weird and really cool. And so Jughead's Time Police is a miniseries where Jughead, in a way of trying to get out of like doing work and getting really good at something quick, discovers all of the parallel Archie dimensions and then has to fight an evil version of himself for destroying all the other dimensions. And so it involves such fun things as like a like a big rough post-apocalyptic Jughead, like a little Saturday morning cartoon Jughead. It was weird and it was a lot of fun. The next one is The War of the Realms, which is the dramatic conclusion to Jason Aaron's Thor comic, which is coincidentally enough the comic that got me back into reading comic books. It was an event that felt epic without being bloated. And I will say this, if you haven't read his Thor run, I wouldn't recommend picking it up because it really is the conclusion to a multiple year. Like the comic started in 2012, so it spanned the better part of a decade. But War of the Realms was all last year, and it was all wonderful. And Jason Aaron's my favorite comic book writer, so he deserves to be on this list. The next one is a relatively new one called Undiscovered Country, which is written by Scott Snyder and Charles Soule for Image Comics. So Undiscovered Country follows a band of adventurers from two post-apocalyptic nation states where they're going to the country of America, which has been isolated from the rest of the world for about 30 years because they get a secret message that the scientists of America have discovered a cure for this like bioweapon that is being used to kill everyone. It's this weird blend of Lost and Mad Max, but with like an American aesthetic. It's really cool and really interesting. There's only been 2 issues that have come out so far, but they really caught my attention really early. And then the final one, and my winner for the Joey of 2019, is a comic called Murder Falcon, written by a person that I'll find out, Daniel Warren Johnson, who did the art and the writing for this. So Murder Falcon is like our world, but it has kaiju in it, and Murder Falcon is about metal and music and friendship and healing, and it's really hard to describe, but like in the most basic of terms, or way to describe it, if you've ever felt powerful playing music, or you ever felt powerful like listening to music, or you've ever engaged in music in even a little bit of a way, this is a comic for you. It's a comic about like, the power of healing and how something like music can really like impact us. There's this really beautiful moment near the end, which I won't say because it's like a pretty massive spoiler, but like, as I was reading this comic, these words and this art on a page, and I read this, and like it moved me to tears. And I'm a person who played music for a really long time. I played like trumpet and French horn, and it initially is suggesting that like metal is the music that will save the world, but at the end you kind of realize that like any music is valid because all music is valid because in some base way all music gives us like an escape from the world. And it's a good comic. I would check it out. It's like 8 issues. So if you have like a way to access, it's one trade, and I highly recommend it. So
very nice, very cool.
Did you read any comics this year of our or the last year. I'm gonna say this year a lot, just so you're aware.
Yeah. No, I did not read any comics, actually. I'm not much of a reader. Who would have thought?
Yeah, fair enough. I would say though, Motherfucking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fucking rad as shit. Like all that. It's got me jazzed for something. That's for sure.
And then yeah. Hey Cody, I'm looking at it. You know what I think it would be a good time for?
Middle section.
Hey everyone, welcome to the middle section.
Welcome.
This is where we talk to you guys about our brand and things. Man,
Yeah.
I'm bringing a weird energy to this episode, I think.
You know what? I think 2020 is just a new year for us. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna bring some weird, some goofy, some just real like stereotype. Put your glasses on, shove them up the bridge of your nose, and tell me that magic missile hits everything regardless. Kind of energy.
New year, new year, new
podcast.
Us. So anyway, hey,
Speaking
Cody,
of new podcast,
yeah. Do you want to start off at the top then?
Yeah, let's start off with news for the podcast and updates for it.
Yeah.
So while we were out, quote unquote, out for the most of December, good old Saint Cody over here has been working hard to give you guys the YouTube Christmas that you've been looking for.
Ho ho ho.
Basically, what that means is for the if you are not on our YouTube page, you can search for us at Fandom Roulette. The logo with the glasses and the various nerdy items will help you reach there. We're doing a podcast episode per day all the way up till January 30th. And once January 30th hits, we will officially be caught up on all platforms. So, hooray!
Air horn sound.
We did that. That being said, we're going to change up the flow of the podcast. New year, new podcast. We're still going to do the same stuff. We're just going to split them up into smaller episodes so that you can grab the content that you like and that you want to share without having to do the other stuff that may or may not interest you, because we have a very broad spectrum that we grab and that we talk about that we love. And, you know, you might not be as interested in certain aspects. So, after hearing some feedback from various fans and whatnot, we're going to split it up so that if you want to just listen to our tabletop stuff and you really want to learn how to be a dungeon master this season with Joe, that is a thing that'll be on its own episode. Or if you want to learn about the Greek gods, Greek?
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason in my head, I was like, that's not right. It's Roman, you idiot. But they're kind of the same anyways.
They're similar.
Yeah. So if you want to just watch that, you will be able to do that. And we're going to have playlists on YouTube so that you can just find the content that you want. I will be making kind of albums and things on SoundCloud eventually, and it'll still be easy to catch. We're just gonna split it up so that you don't have to go through all, the stuff that you don't want to listen to the stuff you do want. Or if you like it all, it just means that you're gonna see more content during the week instead of like all of it dumped out once on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And then my second New Year's resolution is I'm going to start streaming.
Yay.
More details later on the schedule, because I'm still setting things up. Tentatively, we're on Twitch, although that might expand to Facebook and YouTube Live, depending on how all this stuff works, because I'm still fairly new to this game. So, yeah, we're going to be streaming.
Literally.
Yeah, and Joe might be on there occasionally, but it'll mostly be me playing games. And if you want to watch me play games about like the next episode, because right now we're just kind of doing new games. So once this starts, you'll probably see a lot of like new content, or content that I'm enjoying playing and I'll probably talk about on the next episode, feel free to get basically a sneak preview of what is to come.
Get those spoilers.
Yeah. And that's it, I think, for like update news.
Yeah. Hey Cody, I want to send you guys I want to tell you guys how much I like your podcast and appreciate you as people. How can I do that?
Oh man, you can send us a message on Twitter at fandomr_podcast. That is our Twitter handle.
And I want to send you a longer form way to say that I don't actually. No, I'm just kidding. I want to give you guys some feedback, or I want to ask you guys a longer question that just might not fit into 250 some characters, however long Twitter is. How can I do that?
Well, you've got a couple different ways. You can send us an email at fanroulettepodcast@gmail.com where we get fan mail and things like that. Or if you don't feel comfortable giving out your email, I understand. You can go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, and all the way at the bottom, right next to all of our like social media links and whatnot, you can find a little area where you can fill out like a tag, your internet handle, your mother's maiden name, whatever you want, and then a little box that'll you can type out your dissertation on whatever you want. Grilled cheese. That sounds like a fun dissertation.
That sounds good.
Right?
Good, some good. Hey, and then let's see. Where are some places that I could tell people to find your podcast? If they don't necessarily use like an iPod or whatever.
Yeah, so the kind of big ones are iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. But we're also on Spotify. We're also on YouTube, which we just got talked about, and you can basically find all of our episodes live the day it comes out at www.fandomroulette.com.
Excellent. And then let's see, anything else? Oh yeah. Hey, is there any other social medias that you guys are on?
Yeah, we're blowing up the Instagram space. We're on Instagram and Fandom Roulette, and we're also on Facebook and obviously Twitter. Twitter will probably be where a lot of like active information, especially like when a streaming schedule does go live, is where that'll be. But yeah, we are there, and we are there to scare.
Ooh, scary.
Yeah.
All right.
Halloween every day.
Well, no, I don't want that energy in 2020.
That's a bad energy. I'm sorry. I don't know why I brought that to the table.
No, it's fine. That's some people's energy, and that's cool. It is not my energy. All right.
I get that.
Should we get back to the thing?
Yeah.
All right. So I know, Cody, you came with some conversation points about why this was a weird year. Would you like to elaborate on any of those points?
Yeah. So I won't
hit us up.
We'll talk about two of them because there were so many fucking things. Like, don't at me. I understand Pokemon was a fairly disappointing game. I understand. I still enjoyed it, but I get it.
Sure.
We also had a very controversial claim about a game that came out this year that a lot of people have been excited about, which was Hideo Kojima's quote-unquote new genre with Death Stranding and the quote-unquote walking simulator, as people started calling it, or the Amazon delivery service, or, other memes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this. So I really enjoyed the game. I haven't been able to finish it because my schedule has been a little crazy, and another game has kind of taken over like any extra time that I had.
A crazy schedule at the holidays.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're alone in this, my friend.
I know. Must be the only one. But it is a slow and deliberate game. This is definitely a game that is not meant for people who are looking for a very high octane game like Call of Duty or Fortnite or what have you. Like, this is a very deliberately slow game. Sure. The story is super weird. Is it a new genre? I don't think so. Okay. I think that's kind of a bold claim. Sure. it's definitely a new way to look at games. I mean, it is the first AAA game that has been more like of a walking cinematic experience, and we've only really seen like a handful of those.
Sure.
So I can see why, a new genre would kind of be somewhat accurate. I still think the game is fun, but it's also a really long game too. So it's like, if you're gonna play this game, you're really gonna buckle down and have like a, very intense time. Like sometimes it's really chill because you're really just going from point A to point B, looking at stuff, trying to avoid things. But then there's like some really scary shit, like the and this is spoilers, I guess, for Death Stranding. So if you haven't played it and you're like, what the fuck, like, you're gonna have to skip past this part. There are extra planar monsters that show up.
Okay.
And at first, you literally have no way to deal with them. You just have to hide or run or, like sneak around them. It's like a horror stealth game,
Uh-huh.
And then they start giving you tools. And I feel like that part of the game was really well thought out. And it was like, and the way they present items to you as time progresses, it's like, yes, like this was a perfect, like, gaming moment, like it was well executed.
Okay.
But then they added, basically like thugs, right? Like people in this kind of post-apocalypse America who go around and steal shit.
Okay.
And in my opinion, that felt more like an afterthought than the monsters and the rest of the story, because like stealth is like kind of an option, but like they do so many things that like make it very easy to break stealth.
Okay.
Like they basically can ping for your location, and if you're not quick enough, you can like basically get seen right as you walk into their territory, which sucks. And
I
then
wonder if that was like a response to criticisms about the like slow, deliberate nature of the game.
sure. And I don't know. It's one of those things where, because like it's a big area, and then like as soon as you get caught, like everybody except for like maybe some like people at the very back end, like basically come and get you. And so there are two modes when you're fighting these kinds of like raiders. It's either you sneak and like you knock everybody out, and it's like super intense and kind of fun, and then it just immediately turns into like, oh, I got caught, I could either run away or just kind of tag everybody with the fucking bola gun, and it just becomes exhausting. Like in a game that's already slow, I don't necessarily think you needed to slow it down further by making like the quote unquote attack phase just like, okay, let me turn, let me shoot you with the bola. Oh, all right, there's the other guy next to him, let me shoot him. Like, It's very easy. It's not like, the stealth part is pretty difficult. You get caught a lot, but then like once they finally give you the weapon to deal with them, it becomes boring, right? Like, I wish they would have given you like a stun gun at the beginning, and it's like it's shitty, like it's a one pump, and like it's got a terrible reload, like whatever you want to do, but like, and then them not like being automatically able to find you. Like I don't mind if like there's a way for them to see you in their area, but like it was just obnoxious, like like sneaking into their area and like just immediately not being able to do anything about them like pinging you, and it's like, oh well, what the fuck.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
So it's by no means a perfect game, and I think that I think 2019 is kind of an example of like, here's a year with a very like games that almost hit the mark but didn't quite hit it. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's just that's just kind of 2019 in a nutshell. I feel like.
Yeah. Like because we could talk about a million other things.
So many like movies came out this year that just felt like they were kind of falling short of the mark.
Yeah. And I think Death Stranding is unique. I would love to see people expand upon this idea where combat isn't necessarily your first thought and more of a last resort kind of thing. Like, that's a very unique idea in 2019, considering we have like battle royales that are like kind of going over like the popularity mark, and you've got, your quote unquote Call of Duty. That's why I like Death Stranding. It's so different from what we're used to.
Sure.
And that was refreshing, to be honest. Especially in like this super high octane, like everything needs to be fucking crazy and fast and wild. I think this will be one of those games that, like, quote unquote gaming historians will come back to and kind of be like, hey, Death Stranding was a weird game, and like you could tell it was kind of the counterculture to what was going on in gaming in that time. Because like I think that's what it is, and I think that's why it was so divisive, is because some people really like what is considered status quo. Like, I even enjoy some high octane games. Like, I play Destiny 2, which is like, especially the PvP is pretty like all over the place. It's like Call of Duty and all that shit. So like, I get it.
Yeah.
But it's also refreshing to see that some people are making, AAA title games that go against the mold, because you just so rarely see that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna say something later in the show as well that I think might, it follows a similar thought process, I think. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very interesting. So.
Yeah, and then my second Joey, for I have 4 favorite games this year.
Yes.
I would call this the 2019 Remake Award, although I think it's better than just being a remake. Okay. Resident Evil 2 came out this year.
Oh yeah.
And it was a remake of the original Resident Evil 2, and I feel like if you're gonna remake a game now, that's the bar that's been set. Resident Evil 2. It was like they completely redid it. They got away from like the tanky controls and the shitty camera angles, but still managed to keep it scary and intense through the whole thing. It's got like, it's got one of those evil corporate pharmaceutical company makes viruses and it like turns the whole town into a shithole. Like, it's a good game. If you're into horror, and you haven't picked up Resident Evil 2, you should definitely get it, because it definitely hit one of my personal faves for the year.
Cool. All right.
So anyways.
On to my next category?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick twofer as well. Real quick, I'm going to do Joe's Book Corner. There is no, there is a winner in only because I really only read like one new book last year, which is kind of an embarrassment for me. But it was really good, so I still want to sing its praises. I've talked about it, I know, on the podcast before, but once again, I think it's one of those series that feels important in the moment. It's the next book of the Expanse series, called Tiamat's Wrath. The Expanse guys are putting out some of my personal favorite science fiction going on right now. It is what they have called Wikipedia level believability, where they do research to figure out some aspects of it, but it still is unafraid. And it's one of those deals too where the best sci-fi tells stories about us and about today, and the Expanse is no exception. My friend said that apparently he found an interview with them saying something akin to they liked to think about this as the pathway that might one day lead to Star Trek. And, as you would expect, you don't build a utopia quickly. It takes some time and it takes some effort, but it's a good book. And if you like a good human drama, I highly recommend it. And then on to the next category. We're doing live action television. So, my honorable...
I'm so curious what yours is.
My honorable mentions. Legends of Tomorrow. So, Legends of Tomorrow continues to be my favorite superhero television program. It is everything that I think I associate with superheroes, which is weird, wacky adventures and melodrama and it's just quite a lot of fun. We didn't get any episodes quite as amazing as season 3's episode where Psychic Gorilla tries to start World War III by killing Lyndon Johnson while simultaneously telling a story about the criminal of the group meeting his estranged father and learning that he was always kind of a dick. But we did get dragons. And we also got Biff Tannen is one of the characters in season 4. And a quick little story about this. Apparently, he was supposed to be the season's main villain, but the actor was just so lovely and charming that they rewrote it to give him a redemption arc, which is fun.
Oh, that's adorable.
My next one is Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. So yeah, this is kind of a weird one because it's puppets, but that's live action in a way, right? I think that I was so impressed that they went all out and they did actual puppetry for this show, because if I could go on a teeny tiny little rant, so I've been seeing more and more things, people talking about striving to make movies and stuff look as photorealistic as possible, and that's one of the reasons why. There were aspects of The Rise of Skywalker that got cut out because they felt that they're trying to digitally remake Carrie Fisher didn't look good enough and it didn't look realistic enough. And as I was watching the Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance, I was looking at it and it all looked so fake, but in a spectacular way, if that makes sense. Like, I knew the things I was they were real, but they weren't real. And they looked kind of cartoony and over the top and comical, and it made everything all the more magical. It's a good show.
Well, there is something to be said about the uncanny valley, and
sure.
People have realized this over the years, whether they know the concept or not. But the closer we get to digital realism, the more weird things are going to look.
Yeah,
and I know Rogue One did a really good job with what's that actor's name?
Peter Cushing.
Yeah. And they're trying really hard to, basically resurrect dead actors, and yeah.
Doesn't it also kind of wig you out?
Yeah, it's a little weird. For sure. But as they continue with this technology, the closer and closer they get, the weirder things are going to look, because it's there's just that hint that wait a minute, how the fuck did they do that? And your brain just can't comprehend. So
our brain's really good at noticing fake, so
yeah. And so there's a certain distance, and I think live puppetry or quote unquote practical effects are still viable and work. I know it's more expensive than a whole digital thing,
sure, but
I do think that our minds are being trained to pick up on these weird digital things.
Yeah,
in the early in 2011, I couldn't pick out when they were using digital to when they weren't, and now it's I've been trained on it. I know oh, that whole thing is fake or whatever. So it is nice to see that people are using practical effects again, because I do think that is I feel like it was long abandoned, and now it's kind of making its resurgence.
Yeah, and it's exciting in a way.
Yeah.
So the next honorable mention is Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yes.
This was I believe you had mentioned earlier in the episode something along the lines of it ascended the sum of its parts, or something along those lines.
Sure. That sounds like something I would say. Winku.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's there were so many things about this show where I was rolling my eyes and I was we get it. Hey, do you know that being a teen superhero would probably make you an emotionally stunted adult? And I was yep, we've done that before. Carry on. And then it was hey, did you know that? And I was yep, and all these things. But it's a combination of, I think that they presented it in really smart ways, and they didn't dwell on it, and they didn't dwell on any aspects for too long. And then all the the clever writing and the charismatic cast really made that show stand out and felt special to me. So that's why it gets a shout out, honorable mention. My next one is The Witcher. So I think you know who my winner is.
Now I do. I knew the top two contenders.
It literally came down to a coin flip. That's not quite true. I actually justify my decision. But The Witcher was great. It was a bit of a confusing start. But once it got rolling, it was kind of everything I love. The world building was really good. It was gritty, but it was also able to have fun. I also think Henry Cavill was kind of born to play Geralt.
Like, absolutely.
He just felt so natural in that role, and it was kind of hilarious.
My 2 cents on this show, because this definitely like is one of my top, like, if in terms of live television, he can literally convey emotions just by the way he like scowls at the camera.
For
like,
sure.
I know it was so weird looking at him and being like, I know like vaguely in my head like how he's feeling, and he barely says anything except for like fuck and shit. And so like it was really cool to see that. I also think that the show was definitely a huge step up for like kind of the Witcher franchise.
Okay.
Because in the books and the video games, it's notoriously like white.
Yeah.
Like to the point where it's like I'm pretty sure white people are the only people that exist in The Witcher 3, if memory serves, which sucks. And that was like a glaring like what the fuck, and you know, people can argue whatever they want about it, but I was really excited to see that, you know, it wasn't just a bunch of white people on screen, because like we have plenty of that. We don't need any more.
Yeah. I also noticed someone was talking about like not only was it like diverse, but just like so effortlessly diverse, because it was like you had, you know, like wizards and peasants and royals, and like there were, you know, there was diversity at every strata of society. Which was cool, because once again, like if people do things like that, it's often like, you know, we'll just make them a bunch of like, you know, like merchants or whatever. But in this case, it's like no, they're all over like everyone's everywhere, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then of course my winner is, oh boy, it's the Mandalorian.
What? I would
know,
never
right?
guessed.
I mean, so like, because here's the thing: the more I thought about it, the Mandalorian and The Witcher are like effectively the same show, like in just different genres. Because like they're both like quiet, gruff dudes who are bounty hunters who accidentally become dads. And it's like, that being said, like The Witcher, you know, you got Yennefer's story, which is awesome, and you got Ciri's story, which is awesome. But like The Mandalorian, I think it just works because of its simplicity. Like the fact that there are just whole sections, big sections of that show where like it's just music and it's just atmosphere. Like that's cool. The fact that they were just like, how many different genres of Westerns can we do? That was cool too. So, and I think the thing that gave the edge to Mandalorian was the fact that it was weekly. And I will explain.
So you did like the weekly release instead of the whole thing being popped out at once.
Yeah, well, because I think like it was kind of fun because it gave us time to like think about things and think about twists and turns and like talk about like, well, where's it going and things like that. And I think it kind of like made me build investment in the characters, because it was like I came back every week because I wanted to come back, right?
Right.
And it's just the fact that it's like, I don't know, it weirdly endeared me to the characters more, the fact that like I had to do that waiting, and we were able to talk about our theories and who is this person and how is this going to pay off and things like that. So I don't know. I think building it from week to week, it also builds like word of mouth and stuff, where it's like, oh no, you can catch up. There's only like 2 episodes. Whereas like when a show drops all at once, like we're probably not going to see more Witcher until 2021, right? Like,
that would be my guess. Although I don't know, they might be working on it as we speak.
but it came out all at once, so it's just like, if you binged it in a day, I split it up over a couple of days, but if you like binged it in a day, that's a long time to. It's not like Mando season 2 is coming out tomorrow or anything, but like, there's a little bit of investment in there. You're coming back week to week, so it builds it in your mind.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I had more time to think about The Mandalorian than I did The Witcher, just because I think I burned through that in like 2 days.
Yeah.
I think, and it's so weird to me, and I'm gonna make we'll call it a bold statement.
Okay.
I think that the Star Wars franchise could take some pointers from The Mandalorian and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that if they continue to make Star Wars movies, well, they're going to,
Sure.
but like, the Skywalker saga is, officially over or whatever. I think it would behoove them to make Marvel-like sweeps, make movies about individual characters.
Yeah.
Like Poe, like Finn, like Rey, have like these very specific movies about them, and then have them all come together in those big, Star Wars movies. And have, like, it would be cool if in the next, big Star Wars saga that they make or whatever, or the next trilogy that they want to do, where the Mandalorian shows up. Like, wouldn't that be rad to, like, have, 2 or 3 seasons of Mandalorian and all of a sudden he shows up as, like, a good guy or a bad guy and, like, is you're super invested in that character, whereas, like, we only had 3 movies with Rey and 2 of them were, like,
Yeah, for sure.
short, like, it felt like we got very little screen time with them. Like, I think they could take some notes and make very specific stories about certain characters that they want to do, and then make the big Star Wars and go nuts.
Yeah,
so
I feel it. But yeah,
and I think Mandalorian's a good example of, like, they hit that out of the park. That is a good show. There's so many good vibes in that show.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda was a fucking hit.
So I have my own controversial statement to say.
Yeah, hit me.
Spoilers both for The Rise of Skywalker and The Mandalorian, if you haven't seen those things yet. I did not like The Rise of Skywalker. It was I felt like it was muddled, and it was like, I have a lot of thoughts about it, and it'll make this long episode even longer. But
yeah, I mean, like, TLDR, there's a lot of information that comes at you really fast.
It's episode 7 of The Mandalorian, that Ugnaught character, gets killed. And I felt more emotion for that than I felt during the entire run of Rise of Skywalker. Like,
right. They did a really good job at getting investment in Mandalorian, whereas I feel like they didn't quite give it enough time to give that same investment to the characters in that last movie.
Yep. All right, on to your next thing.
Yeah, so this was by far, if I had to give this a category, this was the game of the year that I just kept wanting to play one more bit. Like, whether it's a day, like, oh, let me just play one more day, or one more week, or one more fight. That game was Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've not only played through an RPG, but played through a long RPG. And I plugged easily 100+ hours into Fire Emblem 3 Houses, and the whole time I was just like, I just need to get to that next week. What does the next battle look like? How can I help out the kids at the school? Like, Fire Emblem is a turn-based tactics game that is notorious for its kind of brutal, like, permadeath system and a lot of that stuff. And you can change the difficulty of this game so it's not quite as brutal, and I really like that. So for veterans, I know they're coming out with like a hard mode, or they already did. I'm not entirely sure. And there's like the permadeath mode. So like, whether you're new to the turn-based tactic RPG or you're a veteran, like, this game is super good. It's got like a crazy story that like basically there's 3 school houses, which is like, like 20 students each ish. And they all have their own unique stories and backgrounds. And then something happens in the middle of the game and like, it's just fucking crazy. And, this game just like the battles were satisfying. I really loved like the weird, like, kind of social, like, dating like simulation thing that they had going on, where like you'd give gifts to people, or you'd have like a tea party with them, or you'd go and like find something for them, or you'd learn more about them. And like, as you progress those relationships, they get stronger in battle, or they get stronger in like learning how to battle. And like that, it's a gameplay loop that just keeps feeding in on itself, and like it just keeps asking for more. It's like, oh, I just want one more week. Come on, just give me one more.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a great game. If you have a Switch, I recommend it, like, full-heartedly. It's one of my faves. And then my last game,
okay,
which is arguably one of my faves, like, of this year. Like, I think, like, if I had to rank these, this is definitely like contender for one.
Okay.
It is Destiny 2.
What?
Which, yeah,
What?
I know.
I'm so shocked.
I know. So I looked at my playtime. So this year, in September, Destiny 2, Bungie, the company that made Destiny 2, broke away from Activision Blizzard in a attempt to kind of rebrand itself and like kind of do what they wanted to do with Destiny 2. And they've kind of went to this new kind of strange free-to-play model. A lot of the game is free-to-play. If you want to check out Destiny 2, you can just download it right now. Not everything is, much like free-to-play games, like the Star Wars MMO and stuff like that. There are stuff that is you have to buy and things like that. There's no monthly subscription, but they do have what their new kind of content rollout, which is season passes. And every 3 months, they release new content that like slowly trickles out during the season. You have a battle pass that basically gives you something to like aim towards. And if you spend the $10 for the season pass, you get access to the content for that season, and basically a grind out to level 100, which gives you cosmetics, resources, etc., etc. And the reason I love Destiny 2 so much is it feels good. These are the guys that made the original Halos. So if you like sci-fi and you really want a game that has really responsive, snappy gunplay, this is that game. It is definitely not the perfect game. I'm going to say that out front. It definitely has like that MMO style, like, you have to put a lot of time in to get a lot of stuff. And if that's not something you can invest in, like, I can understand why people don't like the game. But I got hooked. Bungie fucking put their meaty hooks into my shoulder, and they're just like, come on, it's time to play games. And I'm like, all right. And I have put in, since September, 286 hours into this game. The second half of the year. The second half of the year, I have dedicated 286 hours to this game.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's good. If you like MMOs, you're gonna feel right at home with like how they present certain things. But if you just want to try it out just to see what it's like, it's a looter shooter. You go around and you shoot stuff, whether it's other people in PvP or AI monsters in PvE, which is player versus environment or player versus player respectively, because I know that those are terms that I just kind of threw out there. And you get loot, and all the loot has different like stats and different ways things work. Like you get a ton of different guns, and all the guns have like unique perks that may or may not be intrinsically only for that gun. You get armor pieces that give you stats, and those stats basically increase like your grenade cooldown or make you harder to kill, or, you know, you start your recovery because, you know, it's kind of like in that Call of Duty mindset where like, oh, I've been shot. Well, if I stand behind cover, I will regen my health. Stuff like that. And there's lots of RPG elements in it. I still think they're trying to figure out their gameplay loop. I won't say it's perfect. It's definitely not Fire Emblem Three Houses, but I've put a lot of time in this game and I've been enjoying most of it. I love just like how the game feels when you're actually like in the environment and you're shooting aliens and monsters and all that shit like that. It feels good, and there's fun, unique like quests. They're doing this whole thing where spoilers, I guess, for Destiny 2, there's a character that has long since kind of been gone, and they came back in a big way in this season, and they're like talking to you, and like, you know, you're this like big influence on them, and it's like cool because they're like this kind of like history badass, you know. So it's interesting because they went from being basically a standard here's a $60 game and you know, here's all the content, here you go, to this new free-to-play model where every 3 months they like slowly trickle out new content, and now they're, you know, quote unquote independent. They got a loan from another company to basically like get away from Activision and kind of how they do things, because it's very AAA.
Yeah.
Everything's about the money. There are some gripes, like you can talk to anyone on the internet, and the Destiny 2 community has been divisive because they, you know, Destiny 2 did not have a good launch. It was really hard for a lot of people. Bungie and Activision did a lot of stupid things during the game, but I think right now it's in a really good spot. There's a lot of stuff to do, and it's fun.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. This will be
so those are my personal faves
as well.
Yeah.
It's good. It's movies.
What? I would have never guessed.
Right? Oh man. Okay. So honorable mentions. I'm gonna start off with maybe a surprise. In my honorable mentions, Avengers Endgame. Yeah, it's not my favorite film of the year.
Wow. All right.
It was really fun, and it was really solid. And it really surprised me. I was used to this. There was this trend in like the 2010s where like the last chapter of something would be split up into 2 parts, and the first part would be like, all right, we have to get through all this stupid plot. Blah. And then like the last part would be like, all right, here's all the action. And like, I found myself getting really bored at those final chapters of movies, because it was like, oh my God, give me something else, anything else. Like, I think the worst example of this is The Hobbit, if I'm being honest with you. But the Avengers, like, it was cool because it was different. They had like a time heist, for God's sakes. And that that last little bit did maybe fall into the category of like over loud and over crazy, but it was earned in my mind. So, all right, the next one is Shazam. Shazam really surprised me. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. But Shazam was a movie with a lot of heart. It is basically Big, but with superheroes. And it's just at its core, like, it's a movie that really pulled on my heartstrings, and it talks about like what does it mean to be a family and things like that. It's a fun little movie. The next one is Godzilla King of Monsters. It was just big, dumb, escapist fun. It turned my brain off and I had a good old time. The next one is... This is going to be a... Little Women. Yeah. That movie was great.
Okay.
So I will say, another thing that you alluded to earlier was you liked things that weren't like, you liked the Hideo Kojima game because like it wasn't super like loud and in your face and aggro and action packed and things like that. Or not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like,
it was a counterculture to what we expect right now.
This was just like a nice change of pace. It was like a nice quiet movie about a nice family and like, all these different sisters and their hopes and their dreams. And it was just a really charming little flick. I liked it a lot.
Nice.
And then the winner is Knives Out.
Oh yeah, Knives Out was great.
Yeah, it was a mystery wrapped inside a thriller, and it was a lot of fun. It's weirdly this little movie that could, like, I know it has a gigantic superstar all-star cast, but like it's this cool little original story that was really clever and engaging, and it's one of those ones where it's like it's one of those movies I'm gonna go back to and I'm gonna watch again and hopefully notice more things on the second viewing and the third viewing, and those are really the films that are deserving of titles like best, because like it's one of those things where the more you watch it, the more you're awarded, the more likely I'm going to be to go back to it.
Nice. Yeah, that was a really good movie. I only had one like real complaint about the movie.
Okay.
And I think so it's a whodunit. You're trying to figure out through the whole movie who did it.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like who they landed on to be the official like killer of the movie was too on the nose.
Interesting.
Because and spoilers for Knives Out, if you've seen good old Cap in any other movie where he's not Captain America, like he's an asshole. Like he can play a really convincing and awful human being, which is crazy because you see him in Captain America and he's like this, awesome, dude. And he was just, of all of the family, it felt like he was the worst of the group. And to pick the worst person in the group to kind of be like, yeah, he's the killer.
Fair
is
enough.
kind of like, damn, like what I would have loved for them to do is have shit. And the actress's name is escaping me for the life of me. Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes.
No. Yeah. I wish she had done it, but had tricked everybody in, like, she never got caught, but tricked everyone into, like, getting the hot-headed, like, asshole kid to be the killer. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Like, I would have loved that to be the final twist of the movie, is that she's, like, sitting there with a fucking smug look on her face after he's, like, being put in a cop car, and, like, everyone's like, oh my god, did they all get it wrong? Like, that would have been really cool.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, it was a fun little movie.
But I agree, it was like a super fun movie, and I really enjoyed it.
I see where you're coming from. I mean, I think it played. It felt like enough of like your traditional ending that I could see where you're coming from. But I had no qualms with it. But yeah. So that's.
Oh, and it was super minor. I still loved like what they did, because like there was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe he's not the asshole. And then I was like,
yeah,
oh, damn it. Like, so like they did a good job with the movie. This is definitely like, I hardly like to criticize something if like, here's the thing. I went to school for art. I have a very heavy artist background. And the one thing that I learned is like, if you have something to like having a critique on something doesn't automatically make it bad.
Yeah, I know.
And so like sometimes I feel like as soon as I'm like, this is the one thing I didn't like, and then it's like that in my head, like it becomes like, oh, well, they don't like the movie. It's like, no, the movie's fucking great. Yeah. I would have loved one more twist to kind of break it off of him. But that being said, they did trick me for a hot minute. They did get me. They got me good.
Yeah. And then so that's the Joeys for 2019. Here's to 2020.
Here's to 2020.
Shall we do a very, very quick RPG section?
Yeah, so
I don't have you a party of adventurers prepared, but I'll have one for next week. So
right. So do you know what the we had you and a group of adventurers about a month ago?
Yes, can you remind me of the prompt, please?
Yes, I have to find it real quick.
I think I know the answer preemptively.
You and a group of adventurers, if memory serves. You and a group of adventurers must stop an ingenious heist for precious resources and perhaps your romantic interest.
Is it Die Hard?
It is Die Hard.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll have one prepared for next week. I wasn't sure if we were doing one this week.
Yeah, no, we'll so with the split up of this, we'll just make that part of the RPG section.
Fair enough.
But yeah, they won't be going away. We're just going to move them to one part of the video because making 3 of them a week would be exhausting.
I would agree with that. But yeah, so you said you had 2 little prompts for the RPG section.
So real quick, what was your favorite table moment of 2019 in role-playing games?
My favorite table moment of 2019 playing role-playing games. I will say, I'm trying to run record back on all that we did in 2019.
Yeah. Has it finally been long enough where our first campaign is no longer like, did we do our the end of the first campaign in 2019, or did we finish it off at the end of 2018?
I feel like
I want to say we ended it in 2018 and we started this year with our new campaign.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think my favorite moment probably thus far was, oh my gosh.
I'm thinking. This one's hard. Do you need some time to think about it, and I'll say mine?
Yeah, go for it.
So I have 2.
Okay.
One was in our campaign that we currently run, and I really enjoyed our first kind of level 0 start, which was basically a whodunit mystery. A murder happened in a small quiet town, and the party hadn't quite hit their stride yet. They didn't have like magic spells or anything like that, but they had to like go and try to figure out who did it. And they almost walked out of that experience not actually finding who actually started the murder. So I thought that was really, like, it was just a fun and unique experience because we hadn't done that before. Plus there was just like a lot of goofy hijinks. One of the characters was actually in on who did it and was like actively trying to work against the party. So that was really fun. And then the other one was in a redacted game that I can't necessarily talk about. There was a very intense moment where my character had to reveal something about her backstory, and in the moment, because I was getting into it, because it's a very sad tale, and I'll get deeper into it later. I actually, while I was telling this tale, I started to cry and weep for this character because she has had a very shitty life. Who would have thought? So those were my 2. I'll probably at a later date when I'm allowed to talk about it more.
Sure.
Reveal more about it, but yeah. So what about you? What is your favorite table moment so far?
I think my favorite table moment was So without getting into too many spoilers either, there was a moment where I was really slick at role playing my character dealing with a sort of political intrigue situation where my character was being tracked by an NPC who we have since made contact with and we're planning cool stuff with. I think like everything involving Agent Clifflower has been my favorite stuff. And specifically the moment where getting her off my tail was going up to a random flower seller and naming a flower and just loudly announcing that was my favorite kind of cliff flower, and then turning around and she had disappeared. Like, yeah, it was not what I was intending, and it made it even cooler because I was intending her to be like, oh, he knows who I am, maybe I should go talk to him. But the fact that she bounced made it even more interesting to me. So
absolutely, I get it. That was a really good moment when there was a very intense moment where the party was dealing with a lot of like they were doing something that was super illegal, and like a bunch of people were kind of like in on it, and so they had to be careful with how they reacted to the people around them.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a good bit. I've been liking this whole campaign a lot. There's a lot of drama in it. And then our last prompt, and then we can call it a long episode.
Yeah.
What is something you'd like to explore in the tabletop role-playing universe in 2020? Is it is it a character concept? Is it, another dramatic moment? Is it like character growth, a new game?
There's there's a couple of things. I have a couple answers for this.
Take your best.
My first one is I would like to try harder to like divorce my impulses from my character's impulses, because I feel like we are fundamentally different people, and sometimes we see eye to eye, but I think there are things that like my character would do that I wouldn't necessarily do, and vice versa. And so like to try to play him more distinct from myself, which is sometimes really hard because like at the end of the day I am me. And then the other one is I want to try out like other types of like RPGs and stuff. So like a friend for Christmas got me the source book for Microscope.
Nice.
I'd like to play that. I'd like to play role-playing games that don't necessarily have like dice and things like that, which I know we've played once, but I'd like to explore that further because it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And how about you?
So I had a really intense moment in 2018 with your group when I finally let out of the bag the big final reveal, the last thing that I had in my repertoire, which was, spoilers for our campaign, the person who had been giving you your quest, your destiny, so to speak, was actually the villain all along. And I want to recreate that dramatic reveal. Like I want another scene where everyone's like, "Holy shit, what?"
Yes.
I want to do that again. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have some things in mind, but I'm definitely going to, like, that's something I'm pushing for. And then another thing is I actually want to play more.
Okay.
Like I'm a dungeon master and I love world building, and don't get me wrong, like I've been the forever DM for a lot of groups. So I've been having really fun in the Redacted campaign that I'm in currently. So I would like to, after this big long campaign that we are doing, taking a back seat and letting somebody else drive the DM wagon.
It's something, and I know we only meet like twice a month or whatever.
Right.
I'm sure. I think that if we pitched to our group, like every third session was like a one-shot guest DM, I think that people would be into that.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's something to consider, but
yeah, that's what I would like to explore in 2020 is more of that drama. I want that reveal again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it is.
Yeah.
But on that note, should we wrap her up?
Yeah, it's been a long one.
Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We hope that your 2019 was full of lots of fun, nerdy stuff. As always, these are our opinions. If you like something we didn't like or vice versa, like, that's great.
Hit us up on social media and let us know what you thought was awesome, because I'd love to hear from the people who are listening what they like.
Yeah. And then signing, so we'll see you in 2012. We have lots of, oh my god, 2012.
We're going back, guys.
What
2012.
the fuck was that? 2020.
Yeah, guys, make sure to share, link, definitely subscribe, and do all the social media things. Anything you do to basically spread awareness for the podcast is a super help for us as we move forward. So definitely, and then for all you YouTubers out there who will be listening to this, definitely smash that like button, hit that bell, do all the things. Yeah.
Signing off for Phantom Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.